Item 6, this is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville approving the City of Emeryville's master fee schedule, updating, adding fees charged by the City of Emeryville, effective July 1st, 2013. And how are you?
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Brinkman and members of the City Council. The item before you is the update to the city's master fee schedule. The proposed schedule updates fees for increases in the Consumer Price Index and adds new fees to reflect additional services. The majority of the fee adjustments reflect the average change in the Consumer Price Index from March 2012 through February 2013 of 2.4%, with the exception of the Child Development Center fees. These fees are increased by 3.5% as recommended by the Child Development Center Task Force proposal, which was adopted by City Council on June 1st, 2010. Part-time child development fees also include a 5% surcharge in addition to the 3.5%. The remaining master fee schedule changes are additions and updates for specific departments. On your dais, you'll find a copy of the latest schedule, which includes one change to the police fees, which I'll describe in a moment. In the Planning Division, the new fees were approved at the March 5th, 2013 Council meeting, which became effective March 7th. These fees and the new CPI increases are incorporated into this proposed schedule. In the Police Department, concealed weapon permit charges were reduced and capped to align with the new penal code. The latest schedule on your dais also reflects a change to eliminate check cashing business employee permit fees, as these are not currently supported by the city's municipal code. In the Child Development Center, the application fee was reduced to $50, with a recommendation to apply this toward enrollment fees if the application is approved. In the Youth Services Division, staff has included drop-in fees for several programs to provide more flexibility to patrons and has maintained the added $5 non-resident fee for programs. And lastly, in Community Services and the Adult Services Division, all rental and aquatic fees, as well as sports leagues and gym fees, will remain unchanged until the opening of the Emeryville Center for Community Life in 2015. At this time, it's recommended that City Council hold a public hearing, which we would like to continue to the June 18th Council meeting. We also recommend adopting the resolution updating the master fee schedule at the June 18th meeting, as we want to ensure all questions related to child care fees have been addressed at the May 22nd, 2013 CDC Advisory Committee. At this time, if you have any specific questions on the details of the departmental fees, the directors are here to address these.
Okay. Any comments?
I do have a few questions.
Okay.
Shall I go ahead?
Please.
My first item is on the planning department's fees. As you mentioned, on March 7 or March 6, perhaps, we passed new fees for conditional use permits, among other things. And to me, it seems a bit early to be raising those rates by the CPI. So I just wanted to ask the council if we could just leave them as what we designated 2 months ago and let that stand for a year.
Would you like me to respond to that?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
There were several new fees that were added for new permits that are in the new planning regulations, minor conditional use permits, exceptions to standards, temporary use permits, things like that. We already have similar permits that are done, or we previously had similar permits that were done at a staff level, such as minor design review. And what we did was we pegged these new staff level permits to the fee that's charged for the existing staff level permits, the previously existing ones, figuring that they take about the same amount of time to process. So for the past year or more, minor design review has been $450. So we added minor conditional use permit at the same rate and temporary use permits also at the same rate. It's time now to increase the fee for minor design review, so it would make sense to increase the others by the same amount. Otherwise, they wouldn't be lined up anymore. I'd also note that staff, as you may recall, is going to get I think it's a 3.5% one-time pay increase as of June 30th. And these fees are intended to recover the costs that it costs the city to process these applications. So a CPI increase would more or less cover the increase that we have in staff costs.
Even though in previous years, when staff hasn't gotten raises, we've still upped by the CPI our rates, correct? So it's not necessarily tied.
Tracking those.
I would defer to the finance department to respond to that.
Well, that rationale, I mean, I don't want the fees to get out of sync. It just
Right.
seemed silly to me that we just approved, it seemed like just.
Well, maybe we didn't make this explicit at the time. The reason that we made those new fees effective March 7th, of course, was that the new planning regulations took effect March 7th, and we had to have fees in place for these new permits that we had. But it was our intent that they would be increased at the regular cycle as all the other fees would, even though that was only coming up in a few months. I guess perhaps we didn't make that explicit at the time, but that was our
Or I
intent.
don't remember, but I can live with that if that's the rationale, if the rest of council agrees. My next question is about our temporary sign permit fee. I couldn't find it in there, but I don't know if I missed it.
It was the council's direction at the time that the sign ordinance was approved to not have a fee for that permit.
Oh.
So if it's the council's desire to start charging for it, we would suggest charging the same amount as the administrative fee for the encroachment permit.
I guess I misremembered that.
You're referring to the signs in the public right of way.
Signs in the public right of way, right?
Yes. I guess I misremembered that. That's fine, in all our wisdom. My next question is actually about the community services fees for events and rental of spaces. We have 3 different rates in our fee schedule. One is for residents, one is for non-residents, and one is for nonprofits. And my question is, why, I feel like again, we talked about this another year, but residents are not the lowest rate. Well, in some places, residents are the lowest rate, and in other places, the nonprofits are a lower rate, and what the rationale for that is.
Well, this has been in place for a few years now, and I was talking to our rental program coordinator, and we agreed that we thought that the resident rate should probably be the lowest on there, so we would like to go back and refigure these for the next
I would
meeting in
support
June.
that.
Yeah, I
if-
would too.
If
Yeah.
the rest of council, I feel like residents should get the benefit
Yeah.
of living in town, and nonprofits are a larger entity than just a single person, perhaps.
Yep, we'll bring them back in June.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. And then my final comment may be addressed by what you said, that the ECDC Advisory Committee will be looking at the center rates. I know that when in June of 2010, we talked about the rate increases for the child care services, that was premised upon a self-sufficiency of the program itself, a neutral cost to the city. And what we have seen is that really isn't feasible in the way that the center is currently constructed or run. And so I want to look at comparables with other market rate centers to see if we're justified, and I feel maybe not, in raising the rates to the extent that we at that time intended 3 years ago.
Yeah, and let me just say that we started looking at some and doing some comparisons with other daycare centers, and actually what's difficult is that we're really unique. We have subsidized care, and we also have market rate, and then in California, what's happening now is that there are people in the middle who simply can't afford it. Because even if you look at the resident rate right now, if you had a child that went all the way through ECDC, you would pay $84,500 from 4 months to 5 years old. And so you have to have a significant amount of expendable income to be able to cover that beyond your rent and everything else. What we're looking at is, with our market rate, it seems like there's a narrower and narrower field of people who are able to afford childcare. So I think we may have to have, in addition to a discussion about the fees, a discussion about our policy about who we admit into the program, because taking people only from the 94608 is really putting a strain on the center. If we were able to cast the net a little bit wider, we would be more competitive with some of the neighboring facilities, I think.
Jack,
Yeah.
I think we really should take a look at that because circumstances are changing in 94608.
They sure are.
Very dramatically. So we should look at a wider perspective.
Yeah.
But you're not suggesting that we would decrease the rates?
Well, I don't know if we need a 3.5% increase this year. I mean, this is one of the things that the advisory committee wanted to talk about, and to just take a look at some of the neighboring childcares and see if
So
we're.
you'll have that discussion
Yeah.
at the next ECDC
We wanted to do
meeting.
that, and I think there was some discussion too about sibling rates as
And
well.
then you'll bring that back to the council?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was the plan.
And the only other question to me regarding that, which maybe the advisory committee could discuss, although it would require a real commitment by the city, is to look at having a middle ground, a third tier, some kind of subsidy, I guess, that wouldn't be qualified under the state subsidy or the federal subsidy.
Right.
But if there was a way to make childcare affordable for people who are priced out of
Right.
both ends.
Because, I mean, we want to serve people in Emeryville, but the reality of it is we're serving people who make under $30,000, and then those people who have at least $20,000 extra a year.
Right, right.
And so there's a big middle in there that won't be served.
Yeah, if you're making $50,000 a year, you can't spend $20,000
You
on
cannot.
I can't do it.
No.
So the haves and the have-nots, but what about the
What about the
have a
middle?
little?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? I guess I will open up the public meeting, and we will keep it open. So is there anybody that has any comments about this item? Hearing none, we'll continue
No,
until...
don't. Yes.
Yes,
I was going to say, don't close it.
no, I said we're going to continue it
Thank you.
until June
June
18th.
18th at
All right,
7:15, regular meeting of the city council.
Okay, we will be back. Policy